Wasabi wallet. Unfairly private.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome to the show. We've got some news to cover this week. Lots going on. People smashing by all over the place. Good to see, given the dip. If you've been watching the show earlier in the week, I had a few friends on to give you some Zen-like experiences through this dip. If you're a newcomer, maybe you're not used to these wild fluctuations. It's okay. And as we've seen, people were smashing by all through this dip. People with lots of money. So we're going to chat a little bit about that again today, along with a bunch of other fun things that have happened. Some hypocrisy out of people like Janet Yellen and the antiquated banking system that we all have learned to love and hate at the same time. So lots to go on, lots to talk about today. As always, this is live. Quick note from my friend Bill here.
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
I'm never not going to play that. I love it. Guys, thank you for being here. Make sure you're smashing that like button. Give this a share. Let's get the show rolling. As always, I am Ben with the BTC Sessions, and this is your daily session.
Huddle the Bitcoin.
All right, let's dive in. Of course, I almost forgot to have the bitbo.io dashboard up, so I was quickly loading that if I looked surprised. Anyways, right now we're sitting around $48,105 per Bitcoin, although that seems to be dipping a bit. Hopefully you're still in a Zen-like state from our little chat on Tuesday. But regardless, again, when in doubt, zoom out, my friends. Let's look, one day looks kind of 7 day, but when you get to the 1 month, really, it's not that scary. And when you go year to date, it's really comparable to what we were seeing in and around January after that spike to around 40K. So, chill, guys. Regardless, you can pick up 2,082 sats for a single US dollar. That sounds like a steal. 88.76% of all Bitcoin have been mined. And in terms of fees, next block, you're looking at 154 sats per byte. If you're willing to wait an hour, 51 sats per byte. So that's come down a little bit. Maybe you can get some on-chain transactions through in shorter order than you may have. But be sure to keep an eye on those fees. Mempool.space, if you're looking for a good place to do some fee estimates there, be sure to check them out. Now, before we dive into the show, of course, shout out to sponsors of the show, LEDN.io, where you can use your Bitcoin for a variety of different services. I love these guys. I'm using them more and more as of late for various purposes. But in the past, they have saved my ass a couple of times when I needed to get my hands on dollars, but I didn't want to sell my Bitcoin because that's a taxable event, and I was worried about having to buy back in at a higher price. I was able to deposit here, get dollars into my bank account within 24 hours. And when I paid those back, I got back the same amount of Bitcoin, which is the important number to me. Of course, they also have their Bitcoin and USDC savings accounts with interest rates of up to 12.25% annually paid monthly. And their B2X offering effectively allows you to buy more Bitcoin using the same loan mechanism as before. Effectively, that doubles your Bitcoin. So those bullish Bitcoiners out there might want to take a look. Anyways, links below if you want to check them out. If you check them out and you end up grabbing one of those loan products, they'll give you $25 for free into your savings. Up next, we have the Kobo Vault. I love this thing. I use it regularly. It is one of my most used hardware wallets because it is 100% air gapped. That means you never plug it into anything internet connected, keeping the keys to your money safe and offline. It's all QR code, pretty smooth, super easy to use, and it's great for multi-sig. I've been using a lot for multi-sig. So it also works with some of my favorite hardware, or rather software wallets like Blue Wallet and Wasabi Wallet on desktop. So well worth a check. Links for that down below. I'm using the Pro, by the way, just so you know. And I do live on Bitcoin, so I do have to spend it from time to time. One of the ways that I can do that is at BitRefill, they just have every friggin' gift card you could possibly imagine, just everything. You can go by country, depending on where you are. They'll show you what's applicable to you, and you earn sats back while you shop. So that's a gift in itself. So be sure to check them out. And finally, guys, I've been talking to a number of people. I get a lot of emails, people that bought Bitcoin early on. They didn't really pay attention to what they did to it. And then they're coming and saying, hey, I don't know where my backup is. I deleted the wallet off my phone. What do I do? How do I get my Bitcoin back? I've just got like a receipt. I'm like, sorry, man, that shit's gone. Nobody will ever get that Bitcoin again unless you have your backup. And that's why I always say, think about how you back up your Bitcoin. Is it on a piece of paper? If so, that's vulnerable to fire, water damage, or you might accidentally just throw it out because it's a piece of paper, which I've heard literally 3 times this week alone, which scares the ever living shit out of me. So guys, please be careful. One option that I use is the Billfodl, solid steel little tiles for your letters. And again, that keeps you safe from fire, water, and you're much less likely to just accidentally throw it out. So be sure to check them out. There's a link down below. Let's dive into it, guys. MicroStrategy, hard to ignore. Holy shit, they just bought another $1 billion, billion with a B, another billion of Bitcoin, smashing by like nobody else. 1.026 billion to be specific, 19,452 Bitcoin. Doesn't that just make you feel like a bag of shit when your tiny little stack that you're accumulating? Don't feel bad, guys. It's all a matter of perspective. Looking back through the years, like 19,000 Bitcoin to somebody 10 years ago probably wasn't that big of a deal, right? So it's just a waiting game. If you've got low time preference, then you will be fine. Take your time, accumulate, stack those sats. But I do got to say, I love the balls on Saylor here. So MicroStrategy has now amassed $4.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. So I'll just read a little bit here from the Daily Huddle. In line with his firm's efforts to maximize its Bitcoin holdings, MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor is announcing the completion of another whopping $1 billion Bitcoin purchase. He says the purchase of an additional 19,452 Bitcoin for a price of approximately $1.026 billion. Now, this was actually financed through debt. So he issued convertible notes for his company, which people could buy at 0% interest. So there's like no return on that. They just want it, they can convert it into shares of the company at a later date. Yeah, amazing. So this is some of his quote. He's reiterating MicroStrategy's bullish stance. He said, the company now holds over 90,000 Bitcoins, reaffirming our belief that Bitcoin, as the world's most widely adopted cryptocurrency, can serve as a dependable store of value. We will continue to pursue our strategy of acquiring Bitcoin with excess cash, and we may from time to time, subject to market conditions, issue debt or equity securities in capital raising transactions with the objective of using the proceeds to purchase additional Bitcoin. And then he talks about the dip in price recently after the buy, whatever. Then he says, none of the trading matters. None of the volatility matters. People that are living in their little world, studying their Fibonacci retracements and preaching with incredible conviction about upcoming expected 60% retracement or 80% retracement, they are overlooking this fundamental issue, which is if Bitcoin is a digital monetary network, and if enough people with money and power to decide to adopt it, is going to go up and increase by a factor of 100 or 1,000, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Damn. He speaks with some conviction there. I love to see it. I love to see somebody that's in the limelight that doesn't mince words. It's fantastic. Again, he's saying here, again, it could go up to $100 trillion market cap one day, which for reference would put us in the 5 million per coin realm compared to today's price. So yeah, again, like he's talking about where that capital will come from, some of the inflows. And when you think about it, think about where people put their money just because the money itself is bad. They know it's going to be worth less. So you can't put it into a savings account anymore. That's not going to give you any yield. So they shove it into what? Stocks, property, gold. Well, if Bitcoin is the scarcest asset known to man, which it very much is, it doesn't respond to price signal. It is a limited issuance, and that is declining over time. It's the scarcest asset that humanity has ever seen that can't be screwed with. And if that's the case, how much of those market shares of those different of the stock market, of the housing market, of things, precious metals, how much of it is it going to capture if it's better at storing value than all of those? I'm guessing at least some of it, and eventually most of it. So yeah, I don't think it's out of the question. I think it might take some time to get to like 100 trillion, but I think we're going to see fireworks this year. And by the way, if you sold the dip, I was saying in Tuesday's show, Square bought that dip. So if you sold your sats, to Jack. They picked up $170 million worth. Reading this after hearing a fat bill from Saylor, it sounds like pennies, but it's still, that's $170 million. Okay, so it says here on Cointelegraph, financial services outfit Square just announced it has picked up more Bitcoin. Square has purchased approximately 3,318 Bitcoins at an aggregate purchase price of $170 million, the company said in a public statement on Tuesday, adding, combined with Square's previously purchase of 50 million in Bitcoin, this represents approximately 5% of Square's total cash equivalents, and marketable securities as of December 31st, 2020. So like a 5% allocation. And actually that's a pretty conservative amount. Michael Saylor, he's like 90 whatever some odd percent just because the cash coming in has to sit there a little bit before they can smash by. But it's nothing to balk at. And I believe Tesla, after their $1.5 billion buy, that puts them in around the 8% range. So, I think a lot of institutions and larger companies are going to look at, a few percent, and that won't really seem that outlandish to them. They'll be saying, well, if it gets cut in half and I've got a 5% allocation, well, okay, so I lose 2.5% of my cash balance. That's not the end of the world. So really, like, that kind of a strategy there for most companies is not too scary. Let's move on here. A little bit of, I don't know, how would I describe this news? Annoying, shitty. Craig Wright back at it again. Those of you unfamiliar with Craig Wright, he pretended to be the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto. He tried to sue a lot of people for defamation, for saying that he is a fraud. None of those court cases have really turned out in his favor. He also tried to sue, he was sued rather by one of his former associates, or rather the families of one of his former associates, trying to get the supposed Bitcoin that he owns, which he was unable to access. And there were all these intricate stories, and he was caught in so many lies in that court case that to believe that he is the creator of Bitcoin, you would have to have something wrong with your brain. Anyways, he's now trying to go after people that are hosting copies of the Bitcoin white paper on their websites. He went after bitcoincore.org, and he went after bitcoin.org, namely just because they're kind of larger, easy targets to go after. And he threatened litigation if they didn't take down the copy of the white paper. Now, Bitcoin Core actually did it because they were like, listen, guys, we don't have the resources to deal with this kind of shit. Like, we don't have the money to put up these legal fights. If you guys want to fight it, then you're going to have to take this fight on your own. And so what ended up happening is it was kind of the Streisand effect. So as soon as he threatened these lawsuits on behalf of, his, basically saying, I wrote this, I have the copyright to the Bitcoin white paper. If you host it, I'm going to sue you. everybody started hosting a copy, and we'll get a bit more to that. I have a copy on my website, so if you go to btcsessions.ca, you can get the white paper. Anyways, he's now going through with the lawsuit, or attempting to, and he's going through with Cobra, who is kind of in charge of bitcoin.org. And so this is what it says here. Cobra tweeted out, Craig Wright is now suing Bitcoin developers. He's wanting access to coins he alleges were stolen from him. Unlike this white paper stuff, this seems like a well-planned, very serious legal attack. Fuck any exchange that continues to list BSV. By the way, Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, his fork of Bitcoin Cash, which was a fork of Bitcoin. Anyways, his coin has been cratering because nobody wants it. OK Exchange delisted it. Other exchanges have delisted it. I think all exchanges at this point should just like drive it into the ground. But what Craig Wright wants to do is he wants to force Bitcoin developers to try and change the code, the underlying code of Bitcoin, to release his quote unquote stolen coins to his custody so that he owns it. And he's trying to do legal avenues to get them to change the code. The thing is, with a decentralized network like Bitcoin, let's say that the developers were forced into creating a fork of Bitcoin that would release those coins so that they could be moved. I'm running a node behind me, and a node is a full copy of the Bitcoin blockchain, every transaction that has ever happened, and the underlying rules that govern those transactions. And I will not be updating my node to whatever bullshit fork that Craig Wright is able to get out of this, even if he created it himself or forces developers to do it. It has no fucking bearing on my copy of the Bitcoin blockchain here, and he can go fuck himself. And I encourage you all to run nodes and run the copy of Bitcoin that you believe to be Bitcoin, because nobody can force you to change your software. And even if he gets anybody to create this fork for him, it will be worthless. He will have nothing. He will have a copy of the previous state of the Bitcoin ledger, and he will have coins on that new version of the ledger that are released to him that will have sweet fuck all for market value, because nobody cares about him anymore. So it's really astonishing to see. There was an update from Cobra. So Cobra basically also said, piss off, I'm not taking down the white paper from bitcoin.org. He said he received a new letter from Craig's lawyers. Proceedings have begun regarding the white paper. They are coming for developers, for the white paper, and ultimately for all of you. No fucking mercy anymore. And it basically says like, hey, we noticed you didn't take down the white paper after our threats of litigation. Now we are requesting that you provide your full name and postal address, because Cobra's anonymous. And they said, if you don't do this by this time, then we will get a court order compelling you to do so. So, oh man, it's such a clown show. He won't go away. And I don't know what will make him go away. I think he's just going to continue to be a nuisance until he himself does something illegal that lands him in jail. That's kind of my guess of the trajectory of this. But anyways, guys, run a node. This is why you run a node. So idiots like this have no bearing on what happens to Bitcoin, because you get to run Bitcoin yourself and nobody can screw with you. Let's move on. This is amusing more than anything. So earlier this week, we were talking about Janet Yellen, the new Treasury Secretary, formerly head of the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States. She labeled Bitcoin as an inefficient digital currency, and one that is often used for illegal transactions, blah, blah, blah. People should beware that it is extremely volatile, and I do worry about potential losses that investors can suffer. It was funny that she referred to it as inefficient. This is a common misnomer where people assume that Bitcoin is inefficient because they look at the amount of power that it consumes. They don't dive into where that energy is generated. So just those of you watching, quick rebuttal to that is like 70% of Bitcoin energy is pulled from renewables or waste energy. And a lot of that, even my home province of Alberta here in Canada, when you drill for oil, you get gases that come out. You get methane, you get natural gas, and a lot of that either has to be flared, burned, or it has to be vented directly into the atmosphere, which is just terrible. But if you can capture that and then utilize it for the energy, one, you cut down on the carbon taxes that you would have had to pay. Two, you save the environment a little bit. And three, you get some Bitcoin because you can mine Bitcoin with that. And that is what is happening in my province, in Texas, in parts of Colorado, all over. You're starting to see companies capitalize on that. Anyways, that's kind of the misnomer of why Bitcoin is quote unquote inefficient in her eyes. Also, any Bitcoin transaction doesn't translate to transactions per second divided by the amount of energy consumed. A single transaction can be settling for millions of transactions off chain. So it's a stupid measurement. But funny, she just days after saying that Bitcoin is inefficient, the Fed system that allows banks to send money back and forth went down for several hours. It's too funny. And the close proximity of those two things happening is just poetic. It's so beautiful. So I'll just read a little bit here on CNBC. The Federal Reserve System that allows financial institutions to send money back and forth electronically went down for several hours Wednesday, but appeared to be coming back online later in the afternoon. The operational error, as the Fed described it, impacted multiple services, including its pivotal automated clearinghouse system, which connects depository and related institutions sending electronic credit and debt transfers. No foul play suspected. So it was just their own shitty system that didn't work. It wasn't that somebody even tried to take it down. It's just that it didn't work. So anyways, hilarious to see them say, oh, Bitcoin's so inefficient. Meanwhile, Bitcoin has stood the test of time. It has like a 99.9, whatever it is, 98% uptime in 12 years, which is unprecedented. Like nothing does that other than Bitcoin. It's amazing. And yeah, I don't know what more to say about that. Anyways, in that same vein, Fed Chairman Powell, Jerome Powell, we will engage the public on the digital dollar this year. So they are clearly feeling the pinch of the monetary juggernaut that is Bitcoin as it continues to grow and the threat to the old way of doing things. And so they're thinking, well, we'll digitize and then we'll be able to compete. That's kind of not the point, right? The point was to get away from their shit policies. Like it was the awful decisions made by central banks that spurred the need for Bitcoin in the first place. If you're in charge of a digital version of those shitty policies, they still are shitty. So I don't quite know what their game plan is here, but I'll read a little bit. Powell went further while speaking before House Committee on Financial Services, saying that U.S. Central Bank would engage the public on digital dollar later this year, giving a timeline to the central bank digital currencies development for the first time. He said, this is going to be an important year. This is going to be the year that we engage with the public pretty actively, including some public events that we are working on, which I'm not going to announce today. So again, he goes on to say there are both policy questions and technical questions that relate between those two, and they're very challenging questions. We're going to have a public dialogue. In the meantime, we're working on technical challenges and also collaborating and sharing work with other central banks around the world. It sounds like they're just so far away from achieving much of anything. I think it was the ECB, I think it was Christine Lagarde that said they're only 4 years off the creation of a digital euro. Holy God. They imagine 4 years from now, how much bigger Bitcoin will be. And they'll just be wheeling their trinkety crap out the door for their digital euro. Ugh, God. Okay, let's move on. Coinbase. They filed to go public on the NASDAQ via a direct listing. Now, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Coinbase, but I do recognize the weight of something like this in kind of the mainstream media that, Coinbase, this company that has been kind of like a mainstay of the Bitcoin ecosystem, regardless of their questionable activities in the past, that hitting a public market, allowing people to buy stock in that company, it is a big deal, and at least in terms of optics. So I'll read a little bit here. Coinbase Global Inc., the biggest U.S. cryptocurrency exchange, filed to go public via a direct listing in what's anticipated to be a breakthrough moment for the industry. The company won't raise any proceeds in the transaction, Coinbase said in a filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission on Thursday. Coinbase's offering could be the first major direct listing to take place on the NASDAQ. All previous ones, including Spotify, Slack, Asana, so on and so forth, were listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Online video game company Roblox Corp has also announced that it's planning a direct listing after earlier delaying its IPO, blah, blah, blah. Started in 2012, Coinbase has raised more than $500 million from backers that include Andreessen Horowitz, Y Combinator, and Greylock Partners, according to its website. It was valued at more than $8 billion in 2018 after a $300 million funding round led by Tiger Global Management. What other little tidbits here? The company reported a net income of $322 million on net revenue of $1.14 billion for 2020. So that's last year. I can only imagine that will be astronomical this year in the midst of a bear market. Compare that to a year earlier, a net loss of $30 million on revenue of $483 million. So yeah, those swings, they're pretty pronounced in terms of what it can do to a company. It is very cyclical. And if you're not using the bull market to insulate yourself from the bear market, you could get screwed as a company. So they do have to be careful there. Let's keep going here. The one thing I wanted to note in here with Coinbase, as so eloquently tweeted by Marty Bent, Coinbase has been around since, checks notes, 2012, and only has $130 million worth of Bitcoin in their treasury. Hate to see it. Can you imagine being a Bitcoin company that was around since 2012 when Bitcoin was single digits and you've only got $130 million worth of Bitcoin in your corporate treasury? Are you kidding me? Square just bought that in a weekend. You've been in Bitcoin since it was 2012 when it was like $1 a coin. Are you crazy? This is why I don't like coin. Like, what are you doing? Like, have some conviction. Like, get some fucking skin in the game. What are you doing? They've got 130 million Bitcoin. You have 49 million in stable coins. They've got 24 million in ETH, 34 million in other. I like how I like how Jeff Roberts here, he says, and they've got 34 million in other, and then he puts in parentheses, i.e. shit coins. That's great. Yeah, wild. Anyways, let's keep going here. I wanted to bring to the attention of anybody that's running a node. I've been talking a lot about Get Umbrel or Umbrel lately, but again, you also should not forget about MyNode, because I am running MyNode. It's great. It's super awesome. The UX seems a bit more intimidating, but there's just so much in it. Anyways, big release recently. They added Joinbox. They added the Bitcoin white paper download. I love that. Shout out back to the Craig Wright drama. Yes, now you can host your very own copy of the Bitcoin white paper via MyNode. Awesome. They upgraded to mempool version 2.12, upgrade to Loop, upgrade to Ride the Lightning, upgrade to Spectre, upgrade to LND. So they're constantly updating this stuff. I highly recommend. I really do love MyNode. I think it's fantastic. I really do love Umbrel as well. I like to run them both. If you're a little hesitant and worried that it might be too complicated, I wouldn't be. Like, you can always swap between them. Like, you can try out MyNode, and if it doesn't work for you, you can use the exact same box and just flash the new firmware of Umbrel onto a little SD card and swap it, and it will run just the same. So worth checking out. I have tutorials on both of those. You can just search BTC Sessions MyNode or BTC Sessions Umbrel, and you will find both. you can take a look and choose what you like. But running a node, it's definitely a level up. By the way, this is what my node looks like. Obviously, I'm in dark mode here. But yeah, you got your Bitcoin, you got your Lightning, and then you've got all these apps that reference these two clients here. So depending on what you're doing, like Mempool is a viewer that allows you to see what kind of fees there are and what kind of transactions are waiting and previous blocks that have been mined. You can, hook up like your Samurai wallet. You can do all of these different things, all of these apps that can run on top of Bitcoin for different purposes. So it's really cool. You can link your wallets to your own node so that you're not trusting anyone to tell you what Bitcoin is. It's fantastic. I highly recommend. And last thing I wanted to touch on, man, lineup at Bitcoin 2021 is looking great. So Francis Suarez, he's the mayor of Miami, where Bitcoin 2021, the event will be held. And he's now speaking there. Now, you might think, well, why is the mayor speaking there? If you missed the news, he is huge into Bitcoin. In fact, he's talking about putting this part of the city's treasury into Bitcoin. So this is like government level, albeit municipal, governments looking into putting parts of their treasuries into Bitcoin. Awesome. He's also talking about the ability to pay workers for the city in Bitcoin if they choose to accept it, or to pay taxes. That one's not as exciting. Who wants to pay taxes with Bitcoin? Dump your dollars for that, but still cool. But some other recent announcements, Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy, he's speaking. Damn, that's going to be a fire talk. I can't wait for that. And then the other recent one, Anthony Scaramucci from Skybridge Capital, who's also like a huge Bitcoin bull. Dude, like the speakers there are just going to be amazing. Good old Charlie Shrem coming back. Just so many good ones. Peter Todd is awesome. I love him. I do have my tickets. I am planning on going to this. I'm just waiting to see if Canada locks me in a cage before I can get there. We'll see about that. I don't know. Anyways, guys, I'm going to start wrapping this up. Thank you so much for joining me. We got like 150 people in here. Smash that like button. Gives us a share. It really does help. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. I do videos probably at least 3 a week. So if you can do those things, that would be hugely helpful. If you want to help the show in another way, you can hit up the sponsors I mentioned before down below. LEDN, Kobo, BitRefill, Bill Fodl. All of those are in the links. And if you really loved what you saw, you can always drop me a Bitcoin Lightning Network tip at my tippin.me page. That's tippin.me/@BTC sessions. If you don't know how to use Lightning, I have tutorials for that, by the way. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching and or listening. As always, have a great day, great evening, wherever you may be. And I'll see you next time for your daily session. See you guys.
Huddle the Bitcoin.